AITA for protecting my money after my wife's family called me her consolation husband? I'm Richard, 39, and for 7 years, I was Marin's husband at the family table. I was the guy who brought extra folding chairs, picked up ice when someone forgot, paid for last-minute trays of food, and laughed politely when her relatives called me stiff. I was the man standing next to her in family photos, usually at the edge, smiling as if I hadn't just been compared to a man who hadn't been part of our marriage for nearly a decade. For a long time, I told myself this was just what marriage sometimes required. You absorb a little discomfort for the person you love. You let a sharp comment pass because her mother is older, her sister is dramatic, her father hates confrontation, and you don't want every birthday or holiday potluck to become a courtroom. What I didn't understand was that Marin had turned my patience into a family convenience. I didn't enter the marriage hating her family. In the beginning, I actually tried hard with them. Her mother, Renata, was polished in that way some people are when they want cruelty to sound like manners. Her father, Alden, was quiet and chuckled at the end of whatever sentence seemed safest to agree with. Her older sister, Callista, was sharp, loud, and proud of having no filter, which mostly meant she could say ugly things and act offended when anyone noticed. And then there was Bram. Bram was Marin's ex-boyfriend. They had dated before I met her, and according to everyone in her family, he had been practically family. Nobody ever seemed to say that in a neutral way. It was always dropped into conversation like a tiny reminder that I was the replacement model. At our first Thanksgiving together, Callista looked me up and down and said, "So you're the quiet one." Interesting pivot from Bram. I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. Renata laughed lightly and said, "Oh, don't mind her. She teases everyone." Bram used to tease right back. That was the first time I heard his name at a table where I was sitting beside Marin as her partner. It was not the last. Bram appeared in old photo albums, birthday threads, group chat memories, and casual comments that somehow always landed when I was in the room. Bram always knew how to make Marin laugh. Bram never needed directions twice. Bram had that way of blending in, made everything easier. At backyard cookouts, someone would bring up the time Bram fixed Renata's porch light. At holiday potlucks, Callista would mention how Bram carved the turkey like he had done it his whole life. In the shared family photo album, which I paid for because Marin said her mom loved having everything organized, Bram showed up too often for someone who was supposedly just old history. He wasn't always physically there, but he was never really gone. Marin would squeeze my hand under the table. That was her move. Her fingers would press into mine, soft and urgent, as if to say, "Please don't react." Then later, in the car, or while we were unloading leftovers in the kitchen, she'd explain everyone's behavior to me. They don't mean it that way. You know, Callista has no filter. My mom is old-fashioned. She just says things. Bram was around for a long time. It doesn't mean anything. Once, after Callista called me Marin's safety choice, during a birthday dinner, I asked Marin why everyone else got to be exactly who they were, but I had to keep making myself smaller to make the room comfortable. She sighed like I'd asked something exhausting. "Because you know better," she said. "You know how they are." I remember standing there in our kitchen with a stack of paper plates in my hand, still smelling like barbecue smoke, and thinking that was a strange reward for being decent. I knew better, so I had to accept worse. Still, I stayed calm. Not weak. Calm. There is a difference. I love my wife. I didn't want to be the husband who made her choose between me and her family every other weekend. I thought being the bigger person meant I was protecting my marriage. Turns out, I was just making the insults cheaper. The dinner that changed everything was supposed to be nice. Marin told me her family wanted to celebrate because I had paid off the last major shared debt we had been carrying. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. For years, that debt had sat over us like a low ceiling. Clearing it meant we could breathe again. Marin came into the bedroom while I was changing and said, "Tonight is supposed to be good. My mom said she wants to do something special." I looked at her in the mirror. Special good or special Renata good? She gave me that little tight smile she used when she wanted me to stop being accurate. "Please just try." I did try. On the way there, she got a text from Renata saying she had forgotten dessert. I pulled into a grocery store without being asked. Marin said, "You don't have to." I said, "It's fine." I bought 2 pies, a carton of vanilla ice cream, and a bag of ice because someone was always asking who brought ice. When we arrived, the house already smelled like roasted chicken and garlic rolls. The table was crowded with mismatched serving dishes, paper napkins, and too many chairs squeezed around it. A folding chair had been wedged near the corner, and I took it automatically because by then I knew the good chairs were for people who belonged without negotiation. Callista noticed the pies in my hand and grinned. Look at that. Richard comes bearing offerings. See, he can be trained. Alden chuckled into his drink. Marin said, Callista. Not stop. Now don't talk to my husband like that. Just her sister's name, light and tired, like Callista had spilled a little water. Dinner started normally enough. People passed rolls. Renata asked if everyone had enough. Orson, Callista's husband, asked me a few practical questions about the debt being paid off. He was the one person in that family who usually sounded like he had a functioning sense of fairness, even if he mostly stayed out of things. That must feel good, he said. It does, I said. Took longer than I wanted, but it's done. Marin smiled at me then, and for a minute I let myself believe the night might not turn. Then Callista lifted her glass. I guess we should toast Richard, she said, already wearing the smile she used when she expected the room to follow her. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. A couple of cousins laughed before they even processed it. Alden gave his usual cough laugh. Renata hid her smile behind a napkin. I set my fork down and looked at Marin. Her hand found mine under the table. Callista kept going. No, I mean it affectionately. He really is the most responsible backup plan Marin ever had. The table laughed harder that time. Not everyone, but enough. I looked at Marin again. Her face had gone pink. She smiled with her lips pressed together, the kind of smile people use when they are begging a moment to pass without taking responsibility for it. Can we not make this awkward? She said. She was looking at me. Not Callista. Me. That small turn of her head did more than Callista's joke. Everyone understood immediately who had been assigned the burden of making the room comfortable. I was expected to swallow it smoothly so nobody had to taste what they had served. Renata patted the table with her fingertips. Oh, it's only family teasing. Richard knows we love him. Callista leaned back. Exactly. Besides, Bram used to fire right back. There it was. The name changed the air. People perked up like someone had opened a window. A cousin said, Didn't Bram stop by earlier? Renata nodded. He dropped off that little lemon cake Marin likes. Such a thoughtful boy. Bram was 38. Marin looked down at her plate. Orson glanced at me, then at Callista, like he was starting to realize this wasn't landing as harmlessly as everyone wanted to pretend. Renata continued, sweet as frosting. Bram always had that effortless confidence. Some people just walk into a room and you can tell they fit. I waited. I gave my wife the space to say one sentence. Any sentence. That's enough. Don't compare my husband to my ex. Richard belongs here because he is my husband. Nothing. Marin reached for her water glass and took a tiny sip. Callista looked at me. Relax. Nobody's saying you're not good in your own way. Marin whispered, Please don't make it weird. Something in me went very still. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. Renata blinked. Are you finished? Dessert is coming. I stood up. Thank you for dinner, I said. Marin stared at me. Richard, I'm going home. Enjoy the rest of the night. I didn't slam the door. I didn't insult anyone. I didn't ask Marin to come with me. I walked out with my keys in my hand and sat in the car for a full minute before starting it. My heart was beating hard, but my mind was clear in a way it hadn't been in years. I wasn't thinking about Callista's joke. I was thinking about Marin's face when she asked me not to make it weird. She'd heard it. She'd understood it. And she'd still chosen the room. At home, I changed out of my dinner clothes and sat at the kitchen table in the quiet. The house had that dull hum it gets at night, the refrigerator running, the dishwasher light blinking, the leftovers I had expected to bring home nowhere in sight. At 10:42, Marin texted me. You embarrass me tonight. I stared at the sentence until it stopped hurting and started explaining. Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry. Not, Callista went too far. You embarrass me tonight. That was the moment I stopped wondering whether she saw it. She saw it. She just didn't choose me. I didn't respond. I set the phone down, opened my laptop, and did what I should have done a long time ago. I started looking. At first, I wasn't searching for some grand betrayal. I was trying to calm myself with facts. Maybe I had missed something. Maybe I really was overreacting. Maybe years of little cuts had made me sensitive. So I opened our joint account statements. We used that account for household expenses, bills, groceries, insurance, and family things that Marin always described as harmless. Her family had emergencies the way some people have weather. A party deposit here, a medical copay there, a birthday arrangement, a last-minute catered tray, an annual subscription for the shared photo album because Mom gets sad when she can't see everything. The individual amounts were never shocking. $50, $85, $120, $200 here and there. Enough to feel petty if I questioned it. Not enough to start a fight over. But that night, I looked at them together. Family stuff. Renata bill. Callista supplies. Bridge help. Party extra. I scrolled back 6 months, then 9, then a year. The labels were vague, but the pattern was not. Money left our joint account around family events, after emotional texts from Renata, before gatherings where I was still expected to show up and smile. I opened our shared laptop because I remembered Marin had saved a receipt for one of Renata's deposits in the email. The laptop woke up slowly. A message preview appeared in the corner before I even clicked anything. It was from Callista. Don't worry. Richard always comes around. Bram just reminds him to step up. My hands went cold. I didn't open the entire conversation right away. I took a screenshot of the preview first. Then I opened it. Callista had messaged Marin earlier that evening after I left. He's so dramatic. Marin had replied. I know. I just hate when he makes everyone tense. Callista. He needs pressure sometimes. Bram being around keeps him aware. Marin. Tonight went too far, but he'll cool off. He always does. I sat there, reading that sentence over and over. He always does. My pain wasn't invisible. It was scheduled. It was expected to pass. I was a storm they knew how to wait out. I started building a folder. Not some dramatic slideshow. Not something for social media. Just a plain folder with screenshots, bank records, dates, and notes. I redacted account numbers as I went because, even angry, I wasn't careless. I made a timeline. Date. Event. Comment. Who said it? Who laughed? What Marin said afterward. It felt ridiculous at first, documenting my own humiliation as if it were a workplace complaint. But then I realized that was exactly why I had stayed trapped for so long. Every single incident sounded small when isolated. One comment. One joke. One comparison. One hand squeeze under the table. One car ride where Marin told me I misunderstood. Together, they told the truth. The next morning, I woke up after maybe 3 hours of sleep and changed my direct deposit to a personal account. I left enough in the joint account for my share of household bills and nothing extra. Then I removed my card from the shared photo album plan, the family grocery delivery account, and the catering app Marin's mother used under my card because she wasn't good with those things. After that, I scheduled a consultation with a family law attorney. Not because I wanted to sprint into a divorce out of rage, but because I was done being financially blind inside my own marriage. Then I emailed Marin. I kept it simple. I want a full review of our joint account activity for the past year. I also want marriage counseling. I am not discussing feelings while the financial truth is missing. She called me 6 times in 20 minutes. I didn't answer until the 7th. Her voice was tight. What is that email supposed to mean? It means I want transparency. Because of one dinner? No. Because of 7 years and a bank statement. She exhaled sharply. You are making this so much worse than it needs to be. Then make it simple, I said. Tell me what bridge help was. Silence. Marin. It was complicated. That's not an answer. My mom needed help moving money around. To who? Another silence. We'll talk when I get home, she said. But by then, someone else had already pulled the thread loose. Orson texted me that afternoon. Hey, last night was ugly. I thought you were reading too much into the Bram stuff before, but Callista was pushing it. I stared at that, surprised. Orson wasn't warm, exactly, but he was practical. If he said something was ugly, it meant the room had been worse than even he could excuse. I typed back. Appreciate that. A minute later, another message came in. For what it's worth, I don't think Bram getting a little help should have been mixed into jokes. I read it 3 times. What help? The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, and appeared again. Then, wait, Marin didn't tell you that was for Bram? I didn't feel angry right away. It was colder than that. Cleaner. No. Tell me what you mean. Orson called instead of texting. He sounded uncomfortable before he even said hello. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of your marriage, he said. You're already in the middle if you know where my money went, and I don't. He sighed. I thought you knew. Callista made it sound like you and Marin were helping him through a rough patch. Not directly, maybe. Through Renata. I didn't know it was hidden from you. How long? A few months, maybe more. I only heard pieces. Callista said your name like you knew. I thanked him and hung up before my voice changed. Then I went back to the statements. Joint account to Renata. Renata to Bram 2 days later. I only had that second part because of a screenshot Marin had saved in a message thread with her mother, probably to track what had been sent. It wasn't all of the money. It didn't need to be. Enough of it connected. One transfer from our account was labeled Renata Bill. 2 days later, Renata texted Marin. Send it to B. He said thank you. Marin replied. Please don't mention Richard. He wouldn't understand. Another message from Bram to Marin was worse because it sounded intimate without being openly romantic. I hate asking, but you're the only one who gets it. Marin wrote back. I know. Just keep it quiet for now. I sat back from the laptop. Keep it quiet. Richard wouldn't understand. He always comes around. The story had changed shape. This wasn't just a family that couldn't let go of an ex. This was a family using that ex as pressure while quietly routing our household money in his direction. Bram got to be praised as the man who showed up while I helped pay for the showing up. Marin got to look like the good daughter, the compassionate ex, and the patient wife. Her family got to keep their favorite comparison alive. And I was the insecure husband if I noticed. When Marin came home that evening, she looked scared and angry in equal measure. She dropped her bag by the door and said, My family is afraid to talk now because they think you're collecting things. I almost laughed. They should be afraid to lie, I said. That's not fair. What was the money for? She rubbed her forehead. Can we not do this like an interrogation? Sure. We can do it like a marriage. Tell me the truth. She looked toward the kitchen, then back at me. Bram needed help. He had some bills pile up. My mom asked if we could contribute. I thought it was temporary. You thought hiding it was temporary too? I knew you would react like this. That sentence told me more than she meant it to. React like what? Like a husband whose wife is using their joint money to help her ex while her family uses him to humiliate me? She flinched. It wasn't like that. Then explain what it was like. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I said, You had plenty to say when you texted Callista that I always cool off. Her face changed. You went through my messages? On our shared laptop. After you texted me that I embarrassed you. You did embarrass me. You walked out in front of everyone. I nodded slowly. And they compared me to your ex in front of everyone. You only had a problem with the part where I stopped sitting there. She started crying then, but not the kind that made me move toward her. They were frustrated tears, cornered tears. I was trying to keep the peace, she said. No, I said. You were renting peace with my dignity. And sometimes with my money. The next 2 days were exactly what I expected once the old system realized I had stopped cooperating. The family group chat turned into a little courtroom. Callista wrote, So Richard stormed off because Bram's name hurt his feelings? Someone replied. Again? Another cousin. Marin looked so upset. Renata. My daughter deserves support right now. Nobody meant harm. Alden. People can't joke anymore. Bram didn't write anything. He just reacted to Renata's message with a small supportive heart. That tiny heart nearly made me throw my phone across the room. Instead, I screenshotted it. Orson didn't participate in the pile-on. That mattered later. Marin asked me not to respond. Please, she said. You're going to make this explode. It's already exploded, I said. You just don't like where the debris is landing. Richard, don't send anything to the group. I won't send anything untrue. She looked at me like that was somehow worse. The next gathering was for one of Renata's small family dinners that somehow always required 20 people, 3 trays of food, and at least one emergency run to the store. Marin didn't want me to go. Then she did want me to go. Then she said if I stayed home it would prove I was trying to divide her from her family. I went because I wanted the truth spoken in the same kind of room where the lie had been allowed to grow. I brought one printed folder. Nothing flashy. No binder thick enough to look insane. Just a clean stack of pages clipped together. I also had a redacted PDF ready on my phone. When we arrived, the house sounded too cheerful. People were trying hard. That made it worse. Callista saw me and immediately widened her eyes. Careful, everybody, she said. Do we need safe words tonight? Or is Richard grading tone on a curve? Alden gave a weak laugh. Marin whispered, "Please." I said, "I'm good." Dinner started with stiff politeness. For 10 minutes, nobody said Bram's name. Then Callista, who couldn't leave a bruise alone, leaned back and looked at me. "So are we allowed to mention old friends now? Or is that financial abuse too?" The room froze for half a second. Renata's eyes snapped toward her. That told me Callista knew more than she had admitted. Alden set down his fork. "Come on, Richard. Why can't you take a joke?" I picked up the folder from the chair beside me and placed it on the table. Then I opened the family group chat and sent the PDF. The file name was the joke I was supposed to keep laughing at. Phones buzzed around the table one after another. Callista's smile thinned. "What is this?" I said. "You all wanted me to laugh. So let's go through the joke together." Marin went pale. "Richard," she whispered, "you didn't have to do this in front of everyone." I looked at her. "You let them do it to me in front of everyone." Nobody spoke. I opened the folder. The first page wasn't money. It was a timeline of comments, because I wanted them to understand that this was not one dinner. I had dates, events, and the exact wording. Callista calling me Marin's safety choice at a birthday dinner. Renata saying Bram knew how to blend in at a holiday potluck. A cousin saying Marin and Bram were electric while I was sitting 2 chairs away. Callista calling me the responsible backup plan at the dinner that was supposed to celebrate our debt being paid off. Next to several entries, I listed Marin's responses. "Don't make it awkward. They don't mean it that way. You embarrassed me." Marin stared at the pages like they were written in another language. Callista scoffed. "This is creepy. Who documents family jokes? People who are later told they imagined them." I said. Orson, sitting near the end of the table, had his phone in his hand. He was reading the PDF quietly. Renata folded her napkin. "Richard, this is very uncomfortable." "I know," I said. "That's why you usually make me carry it alone." Then I turned to the messages. I had redacted anything that didn't matter. Phone numbers, account details, unrelated family information. What remained was clear. Callista to Marin. "Richard always comes around. Bram just reminds him to step up." Marin to Callista. "Tonight went too far, but he'll cool off. He always does." The room went quieter with each line. Callista snapped. "That's out of context." "Then give us the context," Orson said. Everyone looked at him. He didn't look away from Callista. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out quickly enough to matter. Then I moved to the financial pages. I kept my voice even. I didn't accuse anyone of crimes. I didn't exaggerate. I showed what I could prove. "These are transfers from our joint account," I said. "Labels include family stuff, Renata bill, bridge help, and party supplies. These are messages connecting some of those transfers to money sent through Renata to Bram. This one says, 'Send it to B.' He said thank you." This reply from Marin says, "Please don't mention Richard. He wouldn't understand." Renata's face had lost all of its polish. "That was private," she said. "So were our finances," I said. Bram was there that night. I hadn't known he would be. He was standing near the doorway between the dining room and the kitchen, holding a drink he had barely touched. Until that moment, he had been doing his usual smooth, disappearing act, present enough to be admired, silent enough to avoid responsibility. He finally spoke. "I never asked to be part of your marriage issues." I looked at him. "You accepted money connected to my household while letting them use your name to make me look small at dinner tables. That made you part of it." His jaw tightened. "I was going through a hard time." "Then say that," I said. "Say you needed help. Say you accepted it. But don't stand there being praised as the man who always shows up while my money helps you show up." Nobody laughed. So I asked the question I had been carrying since Orson's text. "If I'm jealous and insecure, explain why my money was good enough for the man you keep comparing me to." Bram looked away first. That did more damage to his image than anything I could have said. Orson turned to Marin. "Did you know about the money?" Marin's mouth parted. A fast answer would have saved her some dignity. A clear answer might have saved more. But she hesitated. And in that hesitation, the room understood. "It wasn't like Richard is making it sound," she said. Orson's expression changed. "That is not a no." Callista pushed back from the table. "This is insane. He's making a folder like we're in court." "No," I said. "I'm making a record because your family keeps confusing silence with consent." Alden, for once, didn't chuckle. He stared down at his plate, his shoulders rounded. Renata tried one more time to gather the room back under her voice. Marin was trying to help someone. That's all. Richard has always been sensitive about Bram. I nodded. And you helped make sure I stayed that way. You used Bram like a measuring stick, then hid the fact that my household was helping him financially. That is not kindness. That's management. The first person to say it plainly was Orson. He put his phone face down on the table and said, I thought Richard was overreacting. I was wrong. No speech. No dramatic apology. Just that. It broke something open. A cousin near Renata stood up and said she needed air. Another left the group chat while we were still sitting there. Everyone's phones buzzed with the notification. Someone else muttered, I didn't know about the money. Callista kept saying the screenshots were out of context. But the problem with losing control of the room is that people stop laughing on cue. Renata looked at Alden. Alden looked at his plate. Marin reached for my sleeve. I moved my arm back. Her eyes filled again. What do you want from me? At this point, honesty without an audience. But since the audience was good enough for my humiliation, it can be good enough for the correction. She flinched like I had raised my voice. I had not. I closed the folder. I'm done being the punchline in a family I kept helping. I'm done paying for gatherings where I get compared to your ex. I'm done funding emergencies that become secrets. And I'm done pretending your silence is kindness. Marin whispered, So you're punishing me? No, I said. I'm removing the reward for disrespect. I left that night the same way I had left the first dinner. No slammed door. No shouting. Just my keys in my hand and a strange, clean ache in my chest. The fallout was not cinematic. Nobody got arrested. Nobody lost everything overnight. Nobody fell to their knees begging. Real consequences are usually quieter and more annoying. The shared photo album expired 2 weeks later because I removed my card. Renata texted Marin, then me, asking if there had been a mistake. I didn't answer. The catering app declined the next family order. Callista complained in the group chat that people needed to stop being weird about money and suggested everyone split the cost of trays for a birthday dinner. Nobody replied for 6 full minutes. Then someone wrote, How much each? Callista didn't answer right away. At the next gathering, there were fewer trays, no extra ice until someone ran out to get it, and a lot more talk about budgets. Renata apparently said, We can just split it this time. And the silence afterward was long enough that Marin told me about it later with her eyes fixed on the floor. 2 cousins sent me private apologies. Not grand ones. Not perfect ones. One wrote, I laughed because everyone else did. I shouldn't have. Another wrote, I didn't know about the Bram money. That was messed up. I appreciated both, but I didn't rush to reassure anyone. I had spent years making other people comfortable after they hurt me. I was done doing cleanup for the people who made the mess. Marin and I started counseling because I had asked for it before making any final legal decision. She missed the first appointment, saying she was overwhelmed. I went anyway. The counselor told me coming alone was still useful. She was right. At the second session, Marin came in with a notebook and red eyes. She said she had been thinking. She said she understood now that she had let things go too far. I did not accept the phrase. Things did not go anywhere by themselves, I said. People moved them. You helped. She stared at her hands. The counselor asked Marin what she believed would happen each time her family insulted me. Marin wiped under one eye and said, I thought he would cool off. He always came back calm. I felt that sentence in my chest, but not like before. It didn't break something. It confirmed something. Calm was never consent, I said. Marin nodded, crying silently. Maybe that was the first honest moment she had given me in years. But honesty is not a time machine. I gave her clear boundaries in writing. Separate finances would stay. Full disclosure of any family-related money. No support for Bram or any family member from joint funds without mutual agreement. No Bram at any gathering where I was expected to attend. Real apologies from Callista and Renata before I would sit at their table again. Continued counseling, individual for her, and joint if I chose to keep participating. And no more turning my reaction into the problem while everyone ignored what caused it. Marin read the list and said, It feels like you don't trust me. I don't, I said. That's why there are boundaries. She looked hurt, but not surprised. For a few weeks, she tried. She really did, in her way. She told Callista that the jokes had to stop. Callista called me controlling. Marin didn't defend me well, but for once, she didn't fully retreat. Renata sent me a text that said she was sorry I had felt disrespected. I replied once. I did not feel disrespected. I was disrespected. Those are different. She didn't answer. Bram disappeared from the group chat. Not officially. He just stopped reacting. His polished image had cracked, not because I made him a villain, but because I made him visible. He had been comfortable being the favored ghost in my marriage. The moment everyone saw the money trail, he became a man with bills and secrets like anyone else. Maren came home one evening after a family dinner I didn't attend. She stood in the kitchen while I packed leftovers into separate containers. We had been living in the same house, but not the same marriage. Separate accounts, separate plans, careful conversations. She said, I didn't realize how much I let them take from you until you stopped giving. I put the lid on a container and looked at her. You noticed the benefits, I said. You realized the damage when it became inconvenient for them. She didn't argue. That was new. I'm sorry, she said. I believed she meant it in that moment. I also believed she had meant a lot of things in moments before choosing her family 5 minutes later. A month after the dinner with the folder, I began a formal legal separation. My attorney kept it clean and boring, which was exactly what I wanted. Accounts documented. Household bills divided. No dramatic threats. No revenge spending. No public posts. Just a line drawn where there should have been 1 year earlier. Maren continued counseling on her own. I hope it helps her. I mean that. But I am no longer available to be the man she practices accountability on while her family waits for me to get tired and come back. Callista never apologized. Renata never gave a real apology. Alden sent one message that said, I should have spoken up. I didn't know what to do with that, so I just replied, yes. That was enough. The strangest part is how peaceful my life became once I stopped attending events where I had to brace myself before walking in. No more sitting in the car outside Renata's house, telling myself to be patient. No more Maren squeezing my hand under the table while letting someone else cut me down out loud. No more smiling beside a wife who wanted credit for loving me in private while letting her family reduce me in public. I didn't leave because I hated them. I didn't even leave because of Bram, not really. Bram was just the name they used for the empty chair they wanted me to compete with. I left because my marriage had become a place where everyone else's comfort had a budget, and I was expected to pay it. The last time Maren asked if there was any way back, I told her the truth. Not to what we had. I won't return to that table as the safe joke, the silent payer, or the husband being measured against your ex. If something new ever exists, it won't be built on me pretending the old thing was love. She cried. I felt sad, but I did not soften the boundary. For years, people called my restraint weakness because it benefited them to misunderstand it. Then the first time I used that same restraint to protect myself, they called it cruelty. That's fine. I know what it was. I didn't leave because of one joke. I left because everyone expected me to keep laughing. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.